Well, there were three of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded. She was the villain. She was the third person in the marriage who needed to rehabilitate her image. Queen Camilla wears the crown, but her wealth is not just in gold. It is the treasure of being Charles's chosen, his beloved through time's storm. She is the official Mrs. Wales, and she's having a wonderful time. Money is no object. Charles adores her. He showers her with jewels. She is a very rich woman now, thanks to her royal lover. She was crying at the airport because she instinctively knew that this wasn't going well, that Charles was still obsessing about Camilla. We saw later, of course, during the royal honeymoon, that the cufflinks and photographs of Camilla fell out of his pocketbook. The royal family's silence in times of crisis is not cowardice. It is strategy. They let the world burn around them, knowing their power lies in stillness. These are things that she knew instinctively, that his mind and thoughts were with Camilla and not with her, his future wife. Whenever there's a crisis, the royal family has one rule, and one rule only: don't do anything. When the Camillagate tapes were published, and when Andrew Morton's book exposing Charles's long affair with Camilla was released, Prince Charles did nothing. Charles lets Camilla rule her own affairs, but the cost was steep: house arrest, whispers in the palace halls. Yet even in chains she remained a queen. He let her take care of affairs for herself. As a result, she was put under house arrest by the British press. She was vilified in public. People threw bread rolls at her, and basically he did nothing to protect her. Nobody was sent in by his team, Prince Charles's team, to actually make life easier for her. She had to survive by herself. Charles never cared for the fickle gaze of the people. The estate may suffer, but his heart belongs to Camilla, and that to him is worth any loss. For the first time, I can almost just remember the Prince of Wales actually standing up and getting counted, showing some real venom in favor of Camilla. For the first time, Charles said, obviously, "Fine, I don't like this either. I'm going to find a good reason not to go to this wedding." Charles seems to have learned nothing in the sphere of public relations. He doesn't know about damage limitation. He doesn't know how to see a problem coming down the road and take avoiding action. Long before Diana, Camilla held Charles's heart in her hands. Their love was written in the stars, and not even a princess could sever those ancient bonds. Charles was in love with Camilla years before he met Diana. That love then turned into a deep and close friendship. He didn't give up that friendship. It was at Camilla's house that he did most of his courting of Diana. Camilla was very much involved in his relationship with Diana in the early days, so there's no doubt that he was seeing her during that period. A lot of people who know Charles quite well say that Camilla played a role akin to that of a mother or nanny. Prince Charles had a nanny every moment of the day who loved him very much, and some research proves that as long as you have one adult figure that is always there and loves you very much, it doesn't really matter if it's your mother, your father, or a nanny. I have known Camilla for 20 or 30 years, and I've always found her extremely attractive. She's got a terrific sense of humor, she's very funny, and she's also very sexy. But best of all, she's wonderful company. She has been really cruelly treated. She has had to suffer huge humiliation. In fact, when she went shopping at a supermarket once, some of the women who were also buying their food pelted her with bread rolls. For a quarter of a century, Camilla Parker Bowles has enjoyed the devotion of the Prince of Wales. Their relationship, according to the prince, was in 3 parts, but it did not contribute to the breakdown of his marriage. The world knows all about Diana, but what have they learned about Camilla? The interesting thing about Camilla Parker Bowles is that nobody knows her, and there is this great sort of fascination and mystique about her still because nobody has even heard her speak until now. The Parker Bowles' motto has been to stay out of sight and keep your trap shut. But here in this amateur video from a recent charity event, the real Camilla can be seen and heard for the first time. Charles believed he could control love, but love is chaos. His attempts to manage it only left ruins in its wake, Camilla, Diana, and a kingdom divided. Prince Charles really believed that he could manage his love life. He could keep Camilla in one compartment and Diana in the other. He was appalled when he was invited by Lady Annabel Goldsmith to her house Orley Lodge for a birthday party, to discover that Diana, who had also been invited, was actually going to come. Surprisingly, the Prince of Wales didn't expect the princess to go, but she did. I went with both the Prince and Princess of Wales, and he was appalled at the thought that the two women in his life were actually going to meet. All his worst nightmares came true. Camilla and Charles had nipped off together. They were having a private conversation downstairs, away from the main party. Within about an hour or so, I heard my name being shouted from the hallway. It was the princess, and she was rather distressed. She said to me, "Ken, I can't find the Prince of Wales." So I said, "Well, you know, there's not much I can do." She said, "Well, I can't see Camilla either." So there was a sort of serious expression that came across her face, and she said, "Will you come and help me find them?" Finally, Diana cracked. She raced down the stairs, confronted Camilla, and said, "Leave my husband alone." Diana had control of that moment, and I think it must have been a wonderfully triumphant moment for her, because it was the only time during all the years she was married to Prince Charles that she was ever able to confront Camilla and tell her to keep off her husband. I think when we were on tour in Egypt, Diana told me about confronting Camilla Parker Bowles at the Goldsmith party, and I mean, it didn't surprise me very much because I knew the princess was a pretty feisty lady, and I was quite pleased on her behalf that she was confronting someone who she felt was a very unwelcome intrusion in her life. Diana's words, that there were three in her marriage, were a cry to the heavens, a lament of a queen without her crown. Camilla's shadow loomed over it all. Famously, Diana said that there were three in her marriage, by which I guess she was referring to Camilla Parker Bowles. It's a fair bet that if there had only been two in the marriage, it would have been easier for those two to do what was, after all, their constitutional duty, which was to stay married. I think that's sometimes forgotten that fairy tale wedding in St. Paul's in 1981 was the Windsor dynasty's best bet for long-term survival. The fact that it didn't work, for whatever reason, whether it was Camilla Parker Bowles or anything else, is the gravest, most dangerous threat to the long-term future of the dynasty. The problem is that he now cannot dump or ditch Camilla because he's gone too far down the Camilla road, made all that unhappiness, and created so much misery for the monarchy, for Diana, for his children, for everybody. For her sake, he now has to stick with her. It's almost like Edward and Mrs. Simpson back in the 1930s. He couldn't drop her. I mean, he didn't appear to want to, but it's a situation where he's made his bed and he has to lie in it. It's almost like the famous saying that when you marry the mistress, you create a vacancy. I've always felt that Prince Charles was a natural bachelor. I remember the days before he was married, and I thought he didn't need a wife. He's got housekeepers galore, valets, butlers, everything that a normal man needs to run his household. A wife was just an accessory. What he really needed was a mistress. It was the first time I think the princess had been seen in public. She was wearing a very elegant country-style coat, and Camilla was wearing, as far as I can remember, something like a check country suit. Camilla was very much the kind of intermediary, had her arm around the princess, explaining the kinds of things that were going on. Diana, very nervous in those old days, was clearly not the kind of sophisticated character she is now. Her eyes kept looking down, very shy and very nervous, and Camilla was playing a very caring role, almost like a motherly figure. The interaction was mother and daughter. Camilla treated Diana not as a rival, but as a child to be corrected. Yet, in doing so, she unknowingly fed the flames of rebellion in the people's hearts. It was very much Camilla who was the woman in charge of the two, and I felt that Diana was treated almost like a child by Camilla. She was guided by Camilla. She listened to everything Camilla said. At the time, it was easy to think it's charming and isn't Camilla being wonderful, but I don't think that was really the case. I think Camilla was just making sure that Prince Charles was not going to step too far out of line as far as she was concerned. I think she was very much keeping an eye on a person whom she considered her personal property. I cannot believe that she didn't realize that there was a very close relationship, certainly one between Prince Charles and Camilla. I don't think women miss things like that, and certainly not Lady Diana Spencer. I don't think Camilla gets particularly fair press, but once she came into that firing line, she was always going to get it. I mean, it's a bit of a nightmare for any woman, least of all Camilla, to be permanently compared on the looks front with Diana. Most women, even supermodels, suffer a bit when compared to Diana. You know, I don't think that worries Camilla particularly. I don't think it worries Charles. I think Charles has always found Camilla infinitely more attractive than Diana. Okay, very strange, but love is blind, isn't it? I think Harry, more than William, has been really upset by the fact that Camilla walked in and took over Diana's home, Diana's man, Diana's lifestyle, Diana's everything. She stepped straight into a woman's shoes, and Harry, who was perhaps the baby of the family and much closer to his mother than William, bitterly resents that. Prince William moves between them like a diplomat in a war zone, offering olive branches while the wounds of the past still bleed beneath the surface. Prince William seems to be very diplomatic and very conciliatory. He knows his father's had a rough time, and he seems to think, well, if it makes you happy, Dad, fine. Because remember, William hasn't really been. Why go that far when you don't necessarily need to? We wanted him to be happy, and we saw how happy he was with her, so at the time it was okay. You wrote that she started a campaign in the British press to pave the way for a marriage, and you wrote, I even wanted Camilla to be happy. Maybe she'd be less dangerous if she was happy. How was she dangerous? Because of the need for her to rehabilitate her image. That made her dangerous because of the connections she was forging within the British press. There was open willingness on both sides to trade information, and with a family built on hierarchy and with her on the way to being queen consort, there were going to be people or bodies left in the street because of that.